What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Pod Scum. This is the podcast where we dive into the deepest, darkest, murkiest waters with a plethora of legendary guests. I am, of course, your host, your bastard of ceremonies, the number one scumbag, Rex Ruger. That's Rex with 3 X's. Don't get it twisted, kids. It's 3 X's for a reason. Believe that. But you're looking at me and you're saying, no, that's not what I know you as. Well, you might also know me as AKA the King of Sleaze, AKA the Hair Metal High Priest. And most importantly, AKA Diamond David Lee Roth Jr. Yup, there he is right there. That's my pops. Take one look, and it is undeniable that I am the son of glam, the front man for the band. Just smoked a few grams, got a million fans. I'm your ice cream man, Mr. Wop, Bop, Boo, Bop, Wop, Bam, Bam, Shazam. Hot damn. And woo, I'm feeling good. And we got another good guest for you today. Another fucking legend. But if you're looking at my hair, totally off topic, and you're wondering, Rex, how do you do it? How do I get the quaff like Roth? Right there, kids. Look and learn. Let me give myself a look here. Play another game of find Rex's bad side, and once again, it doesn't exist. So there you have it. I am, of course, coming to you, as always, from the luscious Lavender Lounge of Love, where it all goes down. And I am, of course, joined, as always, by my friend, my confidant, my consigliere, my head of security, my doorman, my dope connection. Got a little cocaine on your mustache there, Keith. Keith Hernandez Puppet, ladies and gentlemen. The man is a legend. You know him as longtime Mets first baseman, number 17 in your programs, number 1 in your hearts. See, Keith, I always talk you up, baby. The man has my back, and I have his. But let me get right down to it here. We got a good show. We got a legend. What else is new? This is, of course, the No Frills podcast. You don't get frills because you get to look at me, meaning you get thrills. And that's always better than frills. Plus, I'm 50 years old. I don't know how to do nothing cute and tricky with the computer. What you see is what you get. And what you get is a nice little gander at me, and then you get kick-ass guests. So if you like what you see, may I remind you to subscribe for this fantastic content. Look, I'm the hardest working man in show business here, bringing you this podcast and fronting numerous glam and sleaze metal bands up and down the tri-state area and the eastern seaboard. Mainly Love Sword. I know. I've gone on and on and on about it, but I am still looking, sifting through, trying to find virtuoso level players. So if you want to be the band behind the great second greatest frontman to ever do it, get with me. Get with me, and let's go on the ride together. Especially once the DNA testing comes in, and it's once and for all conclusive that that man is my father, and I start to see a little cashola. Oh, then we're going to be funding big-time tours and doing big-time things. So stay tuned, because the DNA testing is almost conclusive. Excuse me. Talked to my attorney today. I have a fleet of attorneys working on this, but the testing, almost where we want it. So things are progressing very nicely as I invite my guest in here. And today, make no mistake, we've got ourselves another rip-roaring legend right here. Let me just tell you about this guy. He's been doing it a long time. What has he been doing, you might be asking? He's been creating. And what's he been creating, you might ask? Kick-ass music. That's what. Face-melting music. Jeez, I'm getting myself so excited here. I may have messed up my hair. You want to take a look at yourself there, Pops? I mean, look at that. The smoldering eyes, the luscious chest hair. Wee! It's undeniable, kids. undeniable. As we wait for our guest to get in here, and you know rock stars, they like to be fashionably late. You know, I myself am one of those people. So, you know, it is what it is. Here we are. We played the waiting game. I feel like the Jeopardy theme song should be waiting. So, I don't know. But I do have a cat here waiting to get out. Well, let's let him out. Keith. And look at that. There's our guest. My cat, of course, did not want to go out. You all saw that. You all witnessed it. So it is what it is. Let's get down to it here. Another episode of Pod Scum, and we got ourselves a kick-ass guest. Let's do it. Where is he? Where is he? Where is he? Hey, how are you, sir?
Hey, what's up? How you doing?
McENTEE. Oh, it's so good to see you, man. Hey, did you have a hard time getting into the room?
No, it was okay. I just had to took me a second to figure it out. That's all.
Thank God technology is making everything so much fucking easier. Huh? I find more people having a hard time getting in here sometimes. And, you know, Google Meet was one. It was so frustrating to try to find a platform to do this on. And Google Meet even like made me pay for the privilege of being able to record them. There's always a gimmick. There's always a gimmick. Yeah, this is, of course, for the people out there in the world who don't know, John McENTEE from, and I'm going to call a spade here, legendary death metal band, Incantation. When you've been around as long as you have, are you able to look at yourself from that perspective, or do you got to kind of play the humble musician and say, oh, go on, we're not legends?
That's a funny way to put it. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I realize the importance that I've had a part in as far as the metal scene, but it wasn't done like to even think about being a legend or anything like that. It was just
sure.
Doing what musicians and artists do is like create stuff that means something to them,
sure,
and work with people that are able to help, express that feeling with you. So yeah, I don't really look at myself as whatever you want to call it, Satan's gift to metal or whatever, But,
yeah.
I mean, I'm not ignorant to the fact of knowing that, surprisingly, I've had a big impact on the underground, death metal world, and even like some other stuff like, I don't know, like, well, what's it called? I don't even know what all the different styles are, like Funeral Doom and stuff like that. We've also had like a part in, and there's a bunch of crazy stuff. But for me, it's just always simple. It just, I just wanted to write the music that I felt made sense to me and was a reason to express it. It has nothing to do with anything else. All the other stuff that's happened over the years has been like a super great added bonus.
Sure.
But the real thing was just doing it because I truly do it because I love doing it. It's not a great money plan or anything like that. Actually it's a really bad decision for a career. But as a musician, it's like you do it because you love doing it, and then you deal with the fact that it's not the best. You're not going to be living a cushy lifestyle, But
right. You're not John, but you're not John Bon Jovi.
Yeah, exactly. I would definitely be playing a different style of music if it was all about the money,
Sure. Yeah, you got to play. Yeah, but yeah, there's certainly something to be said, I think, for playing that style of music and being able to to be have a 33-year and still going career. That's pretty impressive, though. I mean, did you find that the genre that you play is tough to sustain longevity in. I mean, there have been some great bands that have done it: Obituary, Cannibal Corpse, like some of the big ones, you know, that the world certainly knows about in the pantheon of great death metal bands, man. But did you still think when you started this thing in 1989 you'd be here 33 years later playing this kind of music?
Absolutely not. I mean, we basically, when I started it, the band, well, really, Paul Ledney and I started the band.
Mm-hmm.
We started in August of '89, and we were just wanted to be assholes playing our own music that we wanted, tell the world to fuck off.
Yeah.
And pretty much like, you know, we thought it'd be a miracle if the band lasts 5 years or something like that. I figured we would just release like a couple songs, maybe a demo. People would hate it, you know, and we would be like lost in obscurity or something. So
Right.
it was never like a long-term game plan. And I think most death metal bands that have been around as long as us or longer will, you know, if they tell you that that was like their game plan to do it for over 30 years, they'd be lying to you, I would think, because none of us thought that. You know, you just don't think that death metal is going to still be relevant so far into the future. I mean, we were doing it when we were doing it, it was kind of a new thing, but we figured, well, people aren't going to care about this in 5 years because it's going to be like the next trend, and that's going to be, you know, taken away. But for some reason, death metal is like always stuck around, even when it hasn't been the most popular. It's still been like there's still a strong like underground scene of death metal, you know, bands and people and stuff. So it's never really gone away in that amount of time. And you know, for me, I think I'm just stubborn. You know, it's like I just want to play the music I want to play. And if I want to do other stuff, I don't mind playing other stuff, of course. But when it comes to incantation, it you know, has to be something that is, you know, special and unique to what incantation is, you know.
Right. Now, obviously, years ago, when the parental advisory stickers started up, and, you know, we harken back to the days of Tipper Gore on her rampage, attacking anything that was deemed offensive, or, you know, you guys are certainly known as a band that could certainly be very polarizing. Do you still get any backlash from anybody out there, or, you know, like when you come into different communities because the music is blasphemous and dark? Is there anybody out there still pushing back here in the 21st century and in 2022?
I mean, it's not so much, really. I mean, it's kind of strange, but like we were really pushing the limits at the time we were doing it, and now it's like so passe. It's like it's a totally different world. I mean, we've just like people aren't shocked by, you know, being so blasphemous, because most people, I think, are, if they're religious or not super religious like they were, say, back then. And it's just a different world now. So I mean, back then we definitely, you know, dealt with issues that had to deal with, you know, religion and stuff. We had a show in Guadalajara, Mexico, that was like, they tried to ruin the show by at the last minute saying it had to be 21 and over because there was going to be, you know, sex orgies or blood orgies, they said, and other crazy stuff because of how satanic we were as a band. And also a long time ago on our first album, you know, we were on one of those, like, I don't know if it was like necessarily like the list of records, you know, or whatever, like they did, Tipper Gore did, but you know, some of the music, you know, like, I mean, not some of the music, some of the Christian fundamentalists, like those TV shows or whatever. And I wish I had it on videotape still, but they used one of our albums as one of the, you know, bands that you should keep your kids away from. And that was like in 92 still. So yeah, it's kind of, you know, but recently, barely anything. I mean, every once in a while, somebody will just come up to me and see like a shirt I'm wearing. It'll just be like some assorted religious dude or something
Yeah.
asking me like, what does this mean, or blah blah blah, and I'm just like, I don't give a fuck. What,
Yeah.
just leave me the fuck alone. It's like,
Well,
it's
and
not important to me.
and obviously and the people that are spearheading that stuff, even back in the day, I think it's kind of counterproductive because, if you know anything about especially kids, the more you tell them to stay away from something, the more enticing it seems to become. So probably, a lot of bands should probably be thanking Tipper Gore for album sales. Because, at least that's the way it was. I'm a parent and now I have grandkids and stuff. Obviously, that allure of, the dark, dangerous side of things, it's always been an attraction, I think, to most people, just in human nature.
Yeah, that's the truth. Yeah, basically, the more you tell kids to stay away from it, the more they're gonna go towards it. That's just the way. That's the way it's always been. So it's not anything. It's not surprising that, especially back when Tipper Gore did that stuff in the late 80s, that it really helped record sales like crazy, because I was a teenager that time, so I was kind of a little bit older than the demographic they're trying to keep it away from. But I remember that, if you can get that on your record, for most bands, it was like a, something they were trying for because they would get more sales. Because, it says
I think Tipper Gore could have used a good child psychology class. He doesn't seem to understand the way the young minds work. But when someone comes up to you, as you mentioned, and brings up something on your T-shirt or brings up content that you guys put out, are you someone that will have a spirited debate with somebody about religion? And also, where do you stand? In light of the fact that that you portray yourself through your lyrics. Where do you stand from a religious standpoint?
Well, I won't bother talking if somebody is just like, being annoying about it. If someone wants to like seriously have a conversation about that kind of stuff, and especially if they're like a fan of the band or something like that, then I'll do it. But if it's just some random guy talking on the street, it's like, no, let me just go to do what I want to do while I'm out. Right. I don't want to sit around and talk about religion to somebody that they don't really want to hear what I have to say anyway.
Right.
So but I've spoken to people about it. There was somebody on our last European tour. He was like a religious dude that was into our band, and he wanted to know, ask some questions. And yeah, it was getting kind of annoying at a certain point, because I think he just wanted to, he has his own beliefs, and that's what, he wants to like reinforce his beliefs instead of really trying to have a spirited debate and stuff. So if it's like that, it's pretty much a useless conversation. I think in general, having conversations about religion in my situation is kind of useless, because most people aren't going to me for religious information. They're going there because, like I told you before, they want to reinforce their own thing, and they want to just, or try to, like, I don't know, think that I'm going to be like, oh yeah, I'm wrong.
They're going to convert you. Right. Yeah.
Because that stuff's just silly, because well, going on to the next part of the question is that with myself, it's like, honestly, I can give two shits what people believe and don't believe. It's like, I do believe that there should be freedom of religion, or freedom to believe whatever the hell you want to believe.
Okay.
Just don't be a dick about it, is really the bottom line. It's like, but that's the problem, is that a lot of times in the makeup of most religions that I know of, it's like being a dick is almost part of being in the religion, because these people that are like that they believe that they're divinely correct on something,
right?
And they think that they can't be wrong because somebody told them, or it was written in whatever book they seem to follow, or something like that, instead of being able to look at things objectively. So it's really difficult to to deal with that situation when everybody kind of has their feet in the ground, it's saying like, this is where I stand and I don't want to look into anything else. 'Cause, you know, I mean, I myself, I grew up in a you know, Christian family, and you know, I wasn't like majorly forced upon, but I was raised that way, and I
Hmm.
got to a certain point where it just seemed like it was the whole thing was ridiculous to me, the whole story, you know, and stuff like that that they tell you, and I decided that I wanted to, you know, have no part of it, you know, and
Yep.
especially when I was younger, I was way more rebellious about it, but you know, now at this age, it's like, you know, I'm just like, just leave me the fuck alone and let me do what I want to do, and you know, we write about the stuff we want to write about, and if people don't like it or offended by it, first of all, that's good, because you know, good metal is offensive to people. I mean, if it's not
Sure.
offensive, then you're probably not doing metal right. But
Right. Well
you
said.
know,
Yeah.
it just is, you know, there's nothing, you know, I don't give a fuck if somebody is religious and is a fan of ours or goes to our show. I mean, it really doesn't matter. It's like, as long as you're not being an asshole, it's like, you know, believe the stuff you believe in or whatever. And
Sure.
you know, I don't understand why it matters to people that much what other people think, because
I
it's
know.
like, who gives a fuck? It's
I
like,
agree.
there's so many things in life that it's just like, if you disagree with, you just, okay, don't do it then. I mean, if
Right.
you and putting this in a religious area, it's like, you know, if you don't agree with what we say, sing about or write about or believe, you have the choice of not being, you know, not liking it. But why try to ban it or something like that, you know, just because you don't like it? If it's like,
Right.
and I've also always felt like it's way better to be cool about things than to be a dick about things. It's like, if you want people to follow whatever your beliefs are, be fucking cool, and then people will be like, "Oh, this dude's cool. This dude, you know, he believes something a little different than me." Maybe you'd be open to listening to him if he's just hanging out and being cool instead of having some little agenda. You know, like there's
Right. Right.
crazy things like where religious you know, congregations will put on these, you know, events or try to do favors for people or whatever you want to say. Like, you know, I mean, sometimes they'll even go to other countries to do positive things, but then at the same time try to indoctrinate them into the religion. And it's like a
Right.
backhanded compliment. It's like, no, just do the nice thing. And then you don't have to force these people to follow your religion. Just do the nice thing and be like, wow, that whatever, that Christian dude was fucking cool as fuck, you know?
Right.
And that's going to be more of an incentive for them to gain more followers than to be like, you know, trying to tell them what they're believing is wrong and you should believe this way. Look at
Right.
all the good things that we do. It's all, I mean, it's almost like they shoot themselves in the foot. I mean, at least for myself, I don't want any backhanded compliments or people doing stuff for me for agendas. If you want to be cool and be my friend because we get along and it's cool, not because I
Right.
play in a band or not because you want something from me. Do it
Right.
because you're friends, you know?
Right. Well said. Well said. So, we're in some strange times now. Obviously, you know, coming out of the lockdown and everything. First of all, how did you find the lockdown to be, from an artist standpoint? Did you find it to be a fruitful time as far as being able to create and write or come up with riffs or anything like that? You know, did you utilize the time in that manner?
Yeah, it was a well-deserved rest that I needed. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been at it for a long time.
Yeah.
I was just in general over the last 5 years, I've been through a lot of stuff between band stuff, personal stuff. A lot of things have happened over that time. And I really did, the lockdown kind of gave me time to just really focus on, you know, myself on a lot of things and
Yeah.
just get my head on straight with stuff and just enjoy the fact of being home. Yeah, I just recently, um, you know, got married and moved to Greensboro, North Carolina. So I had time to like
Congratulations.
really enjoy. Thank you very much. I just, you know, and the lockdown in a way gave me that time to really, um, you know, just spend time for myself, we'll say, instead of just music oriented stuff. But of course, it's impossible for me not to think in music and want to do music stuff. So
Right.
we wrote a crap load of material in that time. I mean, we basically wrote a full album, and then we like almost 2 albums worth of other songs that we have too, that because we we were planning on doing, we wanted to do another album anyway. We were kind of started working on it right after the last album was done, the Sect of All Divinities album. We started
Mhm.
immediately writing for it, but then the pandemic came and it just like gave us all this open time to write stuff. So we really focused on, coming up with some new material. And then we finished writing the album, and then we still had so much time that we started writing more stuff on top of it. And we our drummer Kyle brought up a good idea, was that we wanted to finally do some of the Doom album stuff that we were planning on doing, because we were planning on doing like an Incantation Doom album back in about 2004 or
Okay.
2003. We were talking about it, but the environment wasn't right for doing it at the time. Just didn't feel right, even though we had a couple songs. And we decided that we end up doing the Decimate Christendom album, where we put a couple of those songs that we wrote on there, but we left a couple off. And we finally decided to take those ones out of hibernation and work, kind of rejuvenate those. And then, of course, got flooded with more ideas. And now we have like, I don't know, like 70 minutes worth of Doom music that somehow we're going to release in some way. We're not exactly sure what what we're going to do, because we have so much material, and we've finished the current album was finished musically a long time ago, and we're trying to finish the track for the Doom record, but at the same time I'm getting inspired to write another record's worth of stuff, because you know it's been almost a year since we kind of wrote most of the Doom album. We were finished with it. So it's like, of course, my brain just keeps wanting to jump ahead, and I have to
Right.
try really hard to control that, because I kind of have, I sometimes jump where I want to just work on stuff, work on stuff, work on stuff. Then I have a whole bunch of stuff that I need to finish.
Right.
that I,
Right. You got a bunch of half-started projects. I've
yeah,
been there myself. I know the exact same way. It's like, all of a sudden, like something new will pop into your head, and then you won't go back and finish what you started with the other one. You're constantly getting an influx of ideas. That's not always a bad problem. I'm sure there's probably a lot of people in the arts field that would love to have that problem, an influx of creative inspiration.
yeah. I mean, I'm feel grateful that I have, a will to want to create, because
Sure.
that's another thing with bands of who've been around as long as us, is that some of them lose their mojo after
Right.
a while. Like, and the reasons are, I understand. It's like they're not young anymore. Maybe they're not inspired the same way
Right.
they were before, or they have different likes and interests, but they still want to do the band and stuff. And I never had that problem. I made an oath to myself when I quit my former band Revenant and started Incantation, that I was going to play music for myself and, stay honest to it. And it just, because the music's so honest to what I want to do, it just seems normal to want to express it
Sure.
throughout time. And people say that, everything's been done and all this crap or whatever, but I think the mind is limitless. And being a musician for as long as I have, I started at a certain point in my career, I started thinking in music expressions, and riffs and stuff. And it's just like, it's part of my way of expressing myself is through music. It's not just talking. I mean, I'm actually not always the most articulate when I talk all the time. I get, I jumble my words, and I forget, I forget things that I'm like trying to express, or I don't express things the right way or
Yeah.
whatever. When it comes to music, it seems like that's my sweet spot for
Yeah.
expressing myself.
You feel
It
like you're in
seems,
your element.
yeah, it's weird, but like when I do stuff musically, it has an importance to it to me, even if it doesn't mean anything to the other people or people that listen to it, for me, it really, really means something. And sometimes I don't even know what it means, but I just know that it means enough that it's worth the time to do it properly.
Right, right. So now that you're 33 years into the band, touring now, what's touring like? This far into your career, obviously you got a few more miles on the old body. I know I'm going to be 50 next month. I certainly feel it. You have to make certain preparations for touring nowadays. What's touring life like as you age in a band like this? Do you go out for, shorter amounts of time? Do you have to do certain routines when you go out? Like, it's obviously a big difference from when you're touring as a teenager.
Yeah. Early on, it was just like, just could party all the time and
Yeah,
get no
right.
sleep and play
Right,
some metal
right.
and fuck it,
Yeah.
But yeah, the older you get, I mean, yeah, basically I have to sleep more on tour than I did
Mm,
early on. It's not just for myself, like playing wise, but also just because of doing vocals now. The best way for me to be a good vocalist is to make sure that I'm sleeping enough. It really helps kind of strengthen up the vocal cords and stuff like that. It just seems to work for me. Um, but I really like to go for it when I'm on tour. I like the hard work of touring. I like to, I mean, it sounds weird, but you're tired, you're, um, sometimes stressed, or you're sometimes, whatever it is from touring. I just like the whole thing though of touring. It just, for me, it's just great to, you know, travel, see people at the shows. Yeah, I mean, my body definitely, it's tougher than it was, but at the same time, when I'm playing on stage and everything, it's like adrenaline just takes over, and I feel the same way I felt when I was like 20 years old or something like that doing it, but maybe
yeah.
after the show, obviously I'd be more tired or something like that. I mean, it'll be all the time. You will say, "Oh, you look fucking tired." Well, yeah, I am fucking tired. It's like at the same time, I, when I get on stage, I save all my energy for that moment,
Right.
either on stage, and then after the show, after we play, I like to spend time and hang out with the people coming to the show, because for me, part of the whole thing is not just our performance, but it's also the people coming out are very important, and they're worth me taking the extra time to either shake their hand, take a photo with them,
I
or
love
sign
that.
something if they want. Whatever it is, it's all good, because we're all in this metal world together. It's not just like we just go to the show, we just play and we leave. No, the metal people are my people, too. So
Exactly.
it's like it's good to hang out with metal people, and regardless of you know age or tiredness or whatever.
Yeah, well, I find it to be, I try and say this without being biased because I do love hard rock and heavy metal, but I do
Mhm.
find though that it's one of the better music communities as far as camaraderie. I often have traveled to shows, regionally in the upstate New York area here where I am. I will travel to a show, and I won't let not having somebody to go with me. I won't let that impede going to see somebody that I really want to see. Like I had this discussion with my son, and he's just like, "Doesn't it kind of suck though, driving out to a show like by yourself?" I'm like, "Yeah, but if it's somebody I want to see, I don't feel like I need someone to hold my fucking hand to go see a great show." And when you go to these shows, someone will either comment on your jacket or your shirt, and suddenly you're hanging out with a bunch of guys, and you've essentially you've met some people that will at least be your friends for the night, if nothing
Yeah,
else.
something in
I mean,
common.
yeah, it's always a very, very welcoming scene, and despite probably the stigma behind it, where people probably just think that metalheads are a bunch of crude, ignorant assholes.
Yeah.
On the contrary, it's certainly a scene that's very welcoming and embracing.
Hmm. I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I know sometimes people are surprised, when I just go out to shows, say locally, they're like
Yeah.
surprised to see me there. And it's like, well, I'm a metal fan too. I want to see some
Sure.
fucking, it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm here to have a good time just like everybody else is. It's not like you play in a band and all of a sudden you don't enjoy fucking going to shows and being metal. It's
Right.
like I play shows, on tour all the time, but I also like to go to them too. But that's also the pleasure of playing in a band, is that when I'm on tour, every night's a show. So it's like,
Right.
cool, I get to hang out, at another show, which is
Right.
like the place I feel comfortable. And where the people, like I said, are my people, not
Right.
my people as far as they're following me. I'm saying my people as far as fellow metalheads,
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, so you guys are original. I know you said that you're down in North Carolina now, but you are originally a New York guy.
Yeah, I grew up in New Jersey, right outside of Manhattan, like kind of a suburb of Manhattan. So yeah,
Okay.
my scene has always been in New Jersey, New York.
Yeah.
That's where I grew up, and that's where I kind of, we started off earlier, my bands, and played a lot of stuff in the New
Yeah.
Jersey, New York area, and Connecticut too,
I'm upstate New York, and the funny thing about upstate New York that I tell people all the time is that like upstate is pretty much anything that isn't New York City. Every time I tell someone that I'm from New York, they always say, "Oh yeah, really? Where? The Bronx, Brooklyn?" No, there's other parts of New York that aren't the city.
Yes, it's true
People
though,
don't seem, yeah, people don't seem to understand that. They just think of New York is just like near the Empire State Building.
yeah. Well, for me, it's like being from Fairlawn, New Jersey, I consider upstate New York like what's it, Rockland and
Yeah,
Putnam County, when that's really like southern New York, but I
yeah,
consider it upstate New York, even though just because I don't know, everyone from New Jersey just calls it upstate New York when it's
right.
really just lower New York, if anything,
Right. So obviously in the 33 years that you've been doing this, tons and tons of changes in the music business for and obviously you've bared witness to all of it though. But do you like where the music business is right now with the advent of all this technology and streaming platforms, or are you one of these old school guys who still, I take it that you probably are like me, one of these old school guys who still really likes the physical product and all the process that used to go with it of opening gatefolds and reading lyrics and all that stuff? Do you like the changes in where the music business is right now? It's obviously dipped into your pocket some with people stealing music, and I'm sure you felt that pinch. But overall, do you like where the music business has here in 2022?
I mean, it's hard to say. There's good and bad things about the music industry, early on and now.
Right.
And I think I mean, well, really, it's irrelevant what I think, because it's going to be what it's going to be.
You're
But
gonna have to roll with the punches. Yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, it was nice when we were able to sell records and actually get paid for, our music being
Yeah.
listened to and stuff. It's like people are so used to now getting music for free or for barely nothing, and I think it's easy to forget that there's people that dedicate their whole lives to creating this music
Yeah.
and take a lot of time and money into creating this music, and a lot of times you don't get back even the investment that you put into making the music. And I get that, at least for myself, I would make music either way if I'm making money off it or not. But isn't it reasonable to expect a little bit of compensation for that much dedication to music? So of course now it's way tougher, because most of the way of making any sort of money is through touring, which isn't an issue, because I like touring, but
Right.
you can only tour so much. And now the expenses of touring are so damn high
Yeah.
because inflation and stuff. The pandemic really fucked everything up even more than tour. Tour was already expensive, and now everything's like sometimes twice, three times expensive on
Right.
certain areas and stuff. So I mean, I could say that I felt the pinch for sure on our last tour, especially the European ones. With the Ukraine issue and the COVID stuff, between all that, it really made prices like super high, and it's just like it's almost impossible to make enough to cover all the expenses of doing a European tour these days. Just the flights getting over to Europe are super expensive now.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
comes out of your pocket, but then the travel, the fuel, everything is like maxed out. Plus, people aren't necessarily buying as much stuff at the shows, merchandise wise, because they're feeling the pinch in their pocket.
Sure.
So it's actually been really difficult lately to get by, touring and whatnot. I'm just hoping that things kind of get back on track a little bit because, um, especially for Europe more than the US, is that a lot of these European tours are going to continue to be canceled because financially it just doesn't make sense. And, a lot of people either can't afford to do a tour and make no money, or, they're if they're doing it more out of business than anything, they're not going to do it to know that they're going to lose money coming back,
Yeah. Is it hard? Is it hard over all these years? And you guys have certainly, and I think any band with that kind of longevity is going to be prone to this. But obviously, there's been personnel changes. Is it hard at this point in time, with how tough the music business is, to keep a band lineup intact, and to keep guys, rowing in the same direction and keep the morale up when it is so tough? I mean, do you feel like right now's lineup is pretty stable?
Yeah, well, I mean, I the lineup that we have now, I mean, we basically have like a touring lineup and like an album lineup, because so Kyle, who plays on our albums, has been in the band for like, I don't know, a really long, over 20 years.
Yeah.
He well, he basically retired from touring, so but we still write with him, and he's still part of like the running of the band, stuff like
Right.
that. And then we Chuck, our bass player, he only has limited time off for work and stuff now, so he could only do certain things with us. So and then we have Luke in the band that he joined in 2019, and he was actually a session bass player for a while. And luckily, he's in a situation where he could tour a lot, and he's doing amazing. Then we have Charlie on drums, who's been totally killing it and doing a great job. And on the last tour, the last two tours, we had Scott Provarnik filling in on guitar, and on bass on some of the Nile tour. And then on the rest of the tour, and we had Dan Vladivon from Morbid Angel filling in on bass for us. So we've been working with a lot of great people and doing a great job. But of course, it's difficult when money's tight, and everybody has bills to pay at home.
Sure.
And you're looking at it and you're like, the income is like really, really fucking tight as fuck,
Yeah.
And basically, me being the founding member, when there's a hit that needs to be taken, I end up just taking the hit,
Right.
And it's okay. I don't mind doing it, but it does get difficult because I end up, like sometimes I'm doing fine, and I was doing fine before the pandemic happened, but after pandemic, it just seems like the expenses, like the pay has stayed the same, but the expenses have gone higher, so high that they're cutting into the profit of even able to pay anybody. So, and I spoke with other bands too on tour. I don't want to name the bands because it's personal stuff, but when I talk to other people in bands, they're having the same problem where it's hard for them to keep the members that they have because the money just isn't there now, since inflation and the pandemic and stuff. And it's a real bummer to have to see somebody go, not because they want to go, but because they just can't afford not to.
Disheartening. Yeah, it is very. And I think what happens too is a lot of times I think, regular people in society that aren't in the arts and entertainment field, I just think sometimes that the public perception is, oh, you play in a band, you get up on a stage every night. Financially, you've got to be okay. You know what I mean? And sometimes that's obviously, as you're saying, it's not the case, I think sometimes. And then, there's the flip side of it that I think, I don't know where people think the endless supply of money is coming from, but I think people that put out albums and people that get up on stage have to be financially set. That seems to be the perception. Oh, you're a musician. Oh, you must be wealthy.
Yeah, I wish that was the case. Trust me.
Yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately, yeah, you're totally right. It's not a glamorous lifestyle necessarily.
Right.
I mean, it has its perks, and I mean, but you sacrifice doing what you love doing for the financial stability. Not everyone can do that, and I
Right.
get people can't do it, but for me it's like, if I didn't play music, I might as well just be dead then, because
Right.
that's just like everything. Like I mentioned a few times, I do this for myself because I love doing it. It's not because of I'm not trying to be a star or anybody important. I'm just trying to be myself, doing what I love doing, and that's playing and writing music. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to do that my whole career and get by with it. I don't. There's no need to be a sob story about it, because
Right.
doing what you get to do is the greatest thing. It's way better than having some job that I just really don't care about or like doing, but I do it because I need to pay the bills and stuff. And I've been there before, and I get it. But I'm just I'm doing what I love doing, and part of that is take the good with the bad. But
Absolutely.
yeah, if you think that you're just because someone's on stage playing, there's like ridiculous amount of, it's kind of like when you see that picture of the iceberg and you just see a little piece popping out at the top, and you
Yeah.
don't know about all the work that's put behind it to make that happen.
Right.
And all that time is money spent, or like even more than money, it's your time spent creating
Yeah.
that. When people only see the tip of the iceberg and they
Right.
just think that life's easy, it's like, no, it's only easy because we work our asses off like a motherfucker to
Yeah.
make it look easy. It's
Sure.
actually not so easy.
Well, and who would have thought, what I mean? Like when you're growing up in your room and you're playing air guitar, dreaming of being a rock star, man, you don't think of, all those X's and O's, what I mean? Like, dealing with the financial part and the business aspect of it, what I mean? Like that comes in, so there certainly is an unglamorous side to it that, that the public does not see, I mean.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So when you first get into heavy music, I hate to ask the dreaded, influence question, but who were the first guys that really started to get you excited about music?
Probably the biggest band that got me into music was Kiss in the 70s.
Oh, sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
it just, I would listen to the radio as a young kid, and I'm talking pretty young, like 5, 6 years old or something. I'd listen to the radio, and for some reason, I always was attracted to like rock and like heavy guitars, and
Yeah, me too.
I used to call that style of music just like hard rock.
Yeah.
And if when I listened to the radio, I just heard something that had a cool kind of guitar tone. And for me, cool guitar tone was just anything that sounded distorted, So
Yeah.
I just was like attracted to that. And Kiss was really the first band that just blew my mind. I mean, the theatrics was great as a kid, but also just, the guitars were heavy. I mean, that, like, I probably got into them in the ballpark of around, Destroyer, Rock and Roll Over, that
Sure.
little era there, and,
Yeah.
hearing those heavy guitars and stuff at that time was definitely an influence. And it just kind of, moved on from there. I started, like, I would say I really liked, what's his name? Brian May's guitar tone, when I heard,
Oh, sure.
that stuff back in the day. And then, started hearing stuff like AC/DC and, and then, you just move on down the line of, it was like, it was kind of like almost the heavier stuff I heard, the heavier stuff I wanted to hear, you know, and you'd go
Exactly.
from like, you know, the hard rock to that time and then start hearing bands like Judas Priest and Iron Maiden, and then
Yep.
the you know, more underground bands, you know, like hearing Venom and all that. It just kind of all just accumulates over time. You just hear it and it's stuff's crazier and heavier and
And you just keep pursuing
cooler.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just pursuing it, and it was basically like just taking that ride of heaviness until I found, like, you know, death metal, or at least like the beginnings of death metal with bands like, I don't know, Death and Necrophagia
Yeah.
and early Morbid Angel, all these bands that I heard. It was just like once I really heard that, I was like, wow, this is really like just this really speaks to me, you know, and that's where I kind of found my place. You know, before that, you know, I was playing heavy metal stuff and trying to find my place, and I enjoyed it. But once I just knew that I always wanted to be heavier, it just had to be heavier. It just for me that made sense, you know.
Well, the interesting thing that you said earlier, was, though, growing up with Christian parents, and you know, in that kind of environment, where were there any restrictions put on you by your parents as you start to discover this heavier stuff?
No, my parents were really cool about it. I mean, they weren't fundamentalists by any means. They didn't even really go to church. They just believed in God,
Yeah.
and and they just looked at it at that time like that's, you know, they knew that their music was like 50s and early 60s music, and that stuff was frowned upon. So they just looked at it like, well, you know, of course we don't get it and don't like it because it's just the next generation of music, and that's just the
Right.
way things go. So they were cool, and they were actually supportive of me wanting to take up an instrument when I started playing guitar and everything. I mean, I had to pay for my own guitar, but they were definitely, you know, they were cool with it and are happy that I found a way of expressing myself, because I've always been kind of the socially awkward kid in school anyway. You know, it didn't really fit in with the rest of the people in school. So it was kind of like music was that way that kind of related. You know, I was able to relate to something that spoke to me and really meant something, where like normal stuff like say sports and stuff like that just wasn't my interest, or
Right.
schoolwork wasn't my forte, we'll say, you know, all this stuff. I just didn't care about it. But when music, I cared about like a motherfucker. Like
Yeah.
I was obsessed, absolutely obsessed with it. I mean, and before the time of the internet, where you'd have to do a lot of work in the record store, looking at records, looking at who's playing on what records, finding the, you know, all these different, like I wanted to know, like, not just, I didn't want to just be, I knew this band. I wanted to know all the stuff the band did. I wanted to know who played in the band. I wanted to know
Yeah.
what other bands they played in. I wanted to know everything about
Right.
everything I possibly could. And it was like, no one made me. I wanted to. Like, that was like
Yeah.
super important to me. It's a weird thing when it comes to music. It's just really important to me, even if it seems ridiculous because it shouldn't be that important. But for
No,
some
not at
reason,
all. I don't believe that at all. I mean, I'm you know, like I said, in the next month going to be 50 years old, and I totally missed that. You know, I mean, just like I said earlier, opening up those gatefolds, scouring those lyrics, and then like you would read like who the guy in the band thanked, and a lot of them would thank bands that they were out on tour with or bands that they liked, and then you'd be like, oh, James Hetfield toured with them or likes them. I'm gonna go check them out. You know what I mean? And like that was kind of like your musical education back then. Now I go on Apple Music, and if I search up a band, the algorithm will just kind of suggest other bands at the bottom. Well, if you like these guys, you might like these guys. You know what I mean? So that, but you know, but back then you had to do it the old-fashioned way. You had to dig around and search for your music,
yeah, I know.
as we call it, the good old days.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was good because, you
Yeah,
know, I mean, for me. I I don't know why, but for me, I always feel it's important to know your music history.
yeah,
Um, you know, as a musician, it's like I just want to know where things happen, where things come from, and you know, the progression of stuff. Like I just want to understand as much of it as I possibly can, you know, and the internet obviously is nice to have that reference for stuff, but was nice. It's like, we'll put it this way. It's nice to have that reference, but at the same time, it breeds like huge amounts of posers because
Yeah.
you could just look things up and all of a sudden you know it. But
Yeah.
for back then, you had to do the hard work. You had to,
Yeah.
go to record stores, buy magazines, buy fanzines, look at thanks lists, or see what shirts people are wearing, whatever the thing
Yeah.
was. And that you would have to try to like people were finding things out in their own timetable. Now it's like everyone knows everything at the same time,
Yep.
and that's not good, I don't think, because that makes everybody's influences very similar. That makes everyone's like now you can learn how to play guitar basically by YouTube, and it's like that's not good. It's not bad that the references are there, but it's not good that there's a million people out learn from the same guy on guitar. I learned from, I had to find a local dude to play guitar. He taught me some stuff that I learned from another person. You learn from little different things here and there.
Yeah.
Now though, all the information is for everybody to have at the same time, and that makes things stale because you start losing some of your own personality. I mean, part of the reason why Incantation is you know uh we created kind of a style of our own was because we were just doing things the way we wanted to do things. We didn't follow any templates. We were just like we had our influences. We wanted, we were influenced by, say, Possessed and Necrophagia and uh black metal bands like Bathory and Sarcophago or whatever. And it was just, but it was, musically, we were just doing it our way. We weren't taught how to play those songs. We
Right.
just wanted to write songs that we thought sounded cool in the way we did it. And, even till this day, the way I play guitar is untraditional compared to a lot of other guitar players. And I don't give a fuck. It sounds good when I play stuff, it sounds right and makes the songs that mean something to me. And obviously it means something to somebody else because, there's hundreds of bands, if not thousands, that are influenced by us now, which is mind blowing. But,
Yeah.
it does mean that having that, uh, not it being in a massive, not having the internet helped me become who I am. If the internet was around then, I probably wouldn't be here today doing what I'm doing.
Right. Right. Are you one of these guys who has any kind of special routine? I know you mentioned sleep earlier, but obviously singing in the style that you do, and I know it's something that can be learned and can be a skill that can certainly be honed. But is there any kind of specific care that you take on your own voice and on your own throat? Any kind of little tips or things that you picked up along the way? Because obviously the singing, the style that you do, can certainly be very harsh, but your speaking voice obviously sounds nothing like your singing voice, and obviously you don't sound like you've done a lot of collateral damage on your voice.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do much of a warm up anymore. Um, I I have to just like say before playing a show, or like usually we do tours, which is good because I could just be at practice and I can growl and mumble the growl, and it's basically just building up the throat muscle
Yeah.
for doing a tour. But as long as I don't like push super hard on the, say, the higher notes and stuff like that, or like to put like really the higher growls and stuff, that could really shred the voice up. But it seems to work better after I've been doing it for a while. Like, say, like I've learned that at practice, if we practice for, I don't know, a week straight before the show, I'll just do a couple sets trying to just make sure I have the fucking notes for the song right, make sure we're playing it tight. And then maybe three or 4 days beforehand, I'll start just doing vocals on some of the songs and trying not to over push too hard, but doing it enough to get the voice in motion and slowly build into it. Then usually by the first show, my voice is at a pretty good area. Usually, if I have like a day between when I kind of warmed up my voice before the tour to the first show, I could usually go out the gate pretty strong with it. But it's just something that I've learned over time. Because even at practice, like I won't do the higher and not screamy parts, the higher growly parts. I'll
Right.
do lower growly parts almost all at practice because those are just easier for me to contain and just like control. And then for some reason, once that gets stronger, then I could push some of the more, throw a little more personality into it. Like, you know, it almost sounds like I'm just doing a bad low end mumble or something like that,
Right.
but it does help getting that whatever that
Right.
thing going in the voice just helps. And once you do it for me, if I get past like the first week or something without blowing out my voice, it's usually good to go. And even when if I do blow out my voice, as long as I get a good night's sleep, the next day, it's by the time I play, it's recovered. I'll wake up, I'll sound like a frog, but
Yeah.
then by like midday or something, it'll start to come, my voice start to come back and it'll be good. But yeah, I don't really do like a daily warm up. I just don't really notice that I need it, so I don't really do it. Because if I was having problems, I would do it. And if the few times I do get like a little bit of a scratchy voice, I will have some, tea or something like that, something warm on the vocal cords.
Yeah.
Tea or soup or something always helps. But yeah, I mean, it's more or less, as long, I know the technique of singing mostly from the diaphragm and not to over push the throat too much, but as long as I listen to my body, it's pretty good, and I don't really drink that much on tour and parties anymore, so it's like that hurts it more than anything else if I drink too much. It's not the drinking that screws it up, it's the fact that when I drink, I talk louder, like we all talk louder when we drink.
Yeah, we do. You're right about that.
Yeah, you start drinking and you start talking louder, and
Yeah.
then I realize I wake up and I'm froggy, So
Yeah.
I know it's not, it's not worth doing that, because playing the shows is so important to me that I want to make sure that my voice is in good shape.
Yeah. Yeah, you take pride. You take pride in the performance. Who are some of your peers out there who are doing the death metal vocals right now? Who you're a fan of? Taking yourself out of the equation. I mean, who are some guys doing death metal vocals right now that you're a fan of?
Well, I don't know. I mean, my favorite death metal vocalists are probably I really like Ross Dolan from Immolation. I think he's a great vocalist. It's always been one of my favorites. Chris Reifert from Autopsy is one of my favorites.
Yep.
I think George Fisher is a really great vocalist. Actually, I know this is not important, but I wasn't really a huge Cannibal Corpse fan until George started doing vocals for him, because I just wasn't a fan of their former vocalist.
Barnes. Yeah.
I know that I'm in the minority of not being a fan of his, but I just never was. But George, I thought George brought a lot to that band. But anyway, other vocalists I really like as far as like in the death metal realm. I like Maddie from Dismember. I think is really good.
Mm-hmm.
I really just like a lot of the older school vocalists. Obviously, John Tardy is one of the best vocalists out there.
Love him.
When he just does these sounds that, I mean, I remember when I first heard it, I was just like, is this really a person doing this?
I thought the same thing. I know, like when they drop Slowly We Rot, I'm just like, God, like this sounds like this band is actually like led by an actual full on monster.
Yes.
Yes. like who is the guy singing for this band? Yeah, it was pretty intense. And he's really evolved over the years, like where the obituary that we have today almost doesn't seem as death metal, they've kind of brought into, you know, I mean, they're still heavy as fuck, but they brought in certainly more like thrash layers. And I actually just had Ken on here a couple of weeks ago, the guitar player, and
Yes.
I just love what they do, though, man. They've always been one of my favorites. And by the way, you're not in the minority, because I love a Corpse Grinder brings to Cannibal Corpse too, and he not only brings awesome vocals. I was fortunate enough to get to meet him when they toured around here. Super nice guy. And Jesus Christ, his fucking neck has its own area code. An impressive neck. Yeah,
I know. To do those vocals way he does it, I guess you need a neck like that, you know.
the head banging, all of it. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty fucking crazy.
The great thing about George and really about all the people I mentioned is that they really love doing it, and that's it shows in the quality of their vocal performance, and that's what I want to hear. I want to hear. I really, really, really hate it when I hear bands and I feel like they're just dialing it in, you know.
Yeah.
A lot of times you can hear with the vocal wise because they'll just be like, you know, saying the words in the tone, but not really throwing in the extra oomph to it. And that stuff bothers me because, you know, I want to see, if I like the band, I want the band to play and like the stuff they're playing too, and feel like they're really believe in it. And, you know, if they don't believe in it, I'd rather just not see the band instead of see the band do a half-assed version of what they are, you know?
Right. So the extreme metal future. How does it look? Are you seeing a lot of younger bands that are taking the baton, so to speak, that are carrying the torch? You know, in your travels out there, are you seeing good, young, hungry bands coming up that give you hope for the future of death metal?
Well, it's amazing to me that there are so many great new death metal bands coming out now. It's like I never would have thought that death metal would have the kind of resurgence in the younger generation as it does now. And as we'll say a longtime death metal musician, you know, it's really brought a lot to the death metal scene because, you know, at a certain point, you know, your older fans just don't come out as much as they used to. They have lives and stuff like that. But now there's like a whole new generation of people coming out. And, you know, a large part of it is the fact that there are newer bands out there that people can relate to. And then they start doing their homework like a lot of underground people do. And they start learning about some of the originators of the style and stuff like that. So yes, it's a great thing that there's bands doing it. It's you know, it's strange because it's a different way of looking at it, because we were looking at death metal in a futuristic way. We were keep trying to push things to a limit, and when it's new bands are like more or less looking backwards and making their bands based more. I mean, we look backwards too. That's not I'm not trying to say we didn't, but I don't know. I hope that they're still looking forward, because the way the music continues is to move forward with it and not just have it be a nostalgia thing, especially for a newer band. You always got to put in your own personality to it and somehow try to push limits, because death metal needs to be pushed. Like limits need to be pushed for death metal, in my opinion, to be good. It can't be, if it's stagnant, it doesn't work properly.
Right. Are you one of these guys who off stage, or when you're not rehearsing, when you're not playing, are you somebody that's just always gobbling up death metal, or are you somebody that ever takes a break and listens to something that people wouldn't expect you to listen to?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. My biggest problem is that when I listen to music that I enjoy, a lot of times it inspires me to want to write music.
Right.
So it's weird, but it's not that I don't enjoy music, but I don't enjoy music as I used to as a way of relaxing. I mean, because even if even if I put something on like Pink Floyd or something, it still inspires me to write music, you know. Or if I listen to, you know, a death metal, like, you know, most of the death metal I listen to is the stuff I grew up to, like, I
Right.
don't know, I'll say like Entombed or something like that, you know.
Right.
When I listen to it, I'll get inspired to want to fucking write, and that's not like relaxing, you know. So
Right. Right.
I don't even listen to music necessarily just because of that. Like, I can listen to music if other things are happening and I'm not focused on it. But if it's like it's just me and the music, I sometimes it takes a lot of focus for me
Yeah.
to not be inspired when I hear something good. I mean, and most of the stuff I hear, I want to get something out of it, so I end up getting it, you know, inspired. And so yeah, it's kind of difficult, but yeah, I mean, let's say, what stuff do I listen to that people wouldn't expect me? I don't know. I mean, I listen to, I mean, my favorite styles are kind of the same as they've always been when it comes to either hard rock or classic heavy metal or death
Yeah.
metal. You know, I like some black metal stuff. I'm not huge on black metal, but um, you know, I like some doomier heavy metal stuff, like, you know, Trouble and Candlemass, bands
Okay.
like that. And
Yeah.
you know, like the classics, you know, like, I don't know, Jimi Hendrix and
Sure.
um Deep Purple or Rainbow, stuff like that,
Okay.
UFO. But those are
Oh, and I just
pretty.
watched last night that new Dio documentary that you brought up. Rainbow was absolutely phenomenal. I mean,
Yeah,
Dio was such a beast with his voice, man. He really was. For such a diminutive guy, I mean, with that powerful of a voice, pretty crazy what he was able to accomplish.
yes, yeah.
Eh,
He's. I mean, I think was it Glenn Hughes is right, where he's probably the best heavy metal vocalist of all time. I mean,
Has to
there's
be
great ones. I mean, Rob Halford is amazing too, you know, and
amazing. Yeah,
you know, Ian Gillan. You know, they're all monsters. Bruce Dickinson, but you know, I mean, it's always going to be debatable, but still, Dio is you know, probably the best for, like, because he grew into playing heavy metal, and he played heavy metal with such honor, and like, you could tell there was a real love
yeah.
in the way he was expressing himself with his vocal style and stuff like that. I
And
mean,
a
every
truly nice guy, too. It seems like a truly sweetheart of a man.
yeah, and I was very fortunate because I got to meet him on the Killing the Dragon tour they did in the States. I
Hmm.
just it was totally coincidental that one of our tour managers was now the merch guy for Dio, and I didn't even know he was the merch guy for Dio until I was at the show, and I happened to get tickets that were at the day of the show that were really close to the front. So my friend just happened to see me in the crowd, and then after Dio's set, he just pulled me over to the crowd. I was like, "Oh shit, you know, there's my friend Bo."
Yeah.
And I went over there, and he handed me 2 backstage passes for a
Oh,
meet and greet with Dio.
yeah.
And I was just like, holy crap, you know.
Now that's a
I,
friend. That's a friend.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was totally blown away. And yeah, and it was surreal. I was sitting at a table. We were you know, kind of like, there's a waiting area, and Ronnie just walks right up to me and sits right next to me, puts out his hand, just says, "Hello, how you doing?" You know,
Yeah. Yeah. He
to me,
seems like that kind of guy. Yeah. And it's also debatable that he is the guy who gave us this.
yes, yeah, yeah. I mean, there's no doubt that he is the one that, like, really pushed it to be a heavy metal symbol. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
I believe he's the one that created it, but you know, not created it, but, you know, made it popular. But
Yeah.
he's the one that everybody follows now, I think, because of
Yeah.
him doing it. You know, it's different. It's different when Gene Simmons was doing it. He was doing more like a this thing or something
Yeah,
like
and
that. And
Gene wanted to trademark it though, because if there's money to be made, Gene wants to make it. If it's at all, if the devil horns are at all profitable,
yeah, yeah,
Gene needs
yeah,
more
but
money in his coffers.
yeah, but Yeah, no, Dio, but meeting Dio was a important part of my life actually, because it really put things for me in perspective, because he is basically like one of the most important people in metal in my for my DNA,
Yeah.
and to be able to meet him and have him be so kind to me and talk to me just like he's talking to anybody else, and I'm talking to a metal god. It just really made me put things in perspective for myself, and
Yeah.
I've since then I've appreciated everything I've had more than what maybe I have before that. Not that I didn't appreciate it, but it really helped me check myself and like be like, if someone like Ryan James Dio is, down to earth and spends time meeting people, that I'm also going to, I, want to make sure that the people that support the music I do know that it's important to me, and they deserve, I'm nowhere near what Ronnie James Dio is, but if in our own circle, it's important to show people that do spend their hard-earned money to come to our shows that I'm okay with, well, I mean, not okay with, I'm looking forward to meeting with them, hanging out
Yeah.
with them, and just treating them with the respect they deserve for being gracious enough to, come to our show. That's why earlier I was saying I always make it a point to meet with the fans or the crowd at the show, um, to show appreciation for it. And that's something that I've, liked doing, but also, you know, I got, I got fuel for doing it from, meeting with Dio, and another person too, to be fair, that really showed me a lot in humility was Richard Christie, who used to play with Death on
Oh
drums,
yeah.
and he played
Yeah.
with Ice Earth and Demons and Wizards. He filled in for drums for us on a tour, and he was playing in Death, he was playing in Demons and Wizards. He got off like shows playing opening for like Scorpions and Iron Maiden and stuff, and he goes with us on a van tour in the US and is having a blast, and just
Yeah.
loving it, good spirits all the time. And it just, really spoke to me as something important, because it's like it's not the success that you have, but it's the enjoyment you have doing what you love doing, and he
Yeah.
was happy just to be on tour with us, because we were friends and we were just having a good time as friends, playing shows and doing fun things, that you do on tour.
And he landed himself a pretty good gig, man, being on the Howard Stern staff too. So I'm very happy for him. I mean, he seems like
Yeah.
he's really, I watch a lot of Howard Stern and I listen to a lot of Howard Stern, and he really seems to be a big contributor to that show, and really seems to genuinely love what he's doing. Yeah, he's a real fortunate guy, and to speak to your point, I love him too, and I mean, he's working for, obviously, one of the biggest legends in the history of radio. He got to play behind Chuck Schuldiner, one of the biggest legends in death metal. He's gotten to play with you. So, he's gotten, he's had a pretty good life, Richard Christie. He really has. And kudos to him.
Yeah. And what was it? When I first met Richard Christie,
Mm-hmm.
he was living in a storage unit in Springfield, Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
He was we were playing a show in Springfield, and the promoter of the show was this dude Steve, rest in peace. He booked us a show at, I can't remember the name of the venue, but he had a stop at this record store slash jean, like used jeans store that was there that
Yeah.
he worked at.
Yeah.
And he ended up, after that, he took us to Richard Christie's place for us to stay for a while, and hang out. And it was just like basically a storefront where they turned into a practice place. And Richard was living there, jamming there. He was also making his movies while he was there. And it was just, totally humble beginnings. And also when he moved to Florida, he was living also in his storage unit with his drum set,
Mm-hmm.
and he would shower outside with a hose,
Yeah. Really
we
living the
drove.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was, and then he worked hard and he got really successful. And when these good things happened for him, I was 100% supportive of him, because to see somebody work so hard and then get so successful is such an inspiration as a fellow musician to see that, because
Yeah.
he's doing both things, the Howard Stern show and the music stuff. It was the loves, the things that he loved in life that he
Yeah.
was doing, and he accomplished both of them, and he he deserves people to respect him for that, and to be a inspiration for other people.
Yeah. So before I turn you loose here, and I appreciate all the time you spent with me, I got to put you through your paces. Just a couple of more segments here. Since my podcast is called Pod Scum, I like to take my good-natured guests who I think will play along and put them in the Pod Scum furnace. And judging by your lyrics, you don't seem like a guy who minds when somebody turns the heat up a little bit. So 5 questions, comparison questions. I would say I'll start the clock if I fucking had one here, but I'm not that organized. But just give me your answers right off the top of your head. Better name for Satan, Lucifer or Beelzebub?
Lucifer.
Yeah, because you could call him Lou, right? That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
you could call Beelzebub Bub, though. That's kind of nice,
Yeah, but Beelzebub reminds me of one of my friends who goes by the name Beelzebub, and it just seems weird.
Well, I will be grading these as we go along, though. So, but yeah, you're a nice guy. I'm great on a curve here. Who wins in a fight out of the Battle of the Glens? Glenn Danzig, Glenn Benton. Now, mind you, Glenn Danzig has been punched out though on camera before, so we know that he's a lot of just arms and not much else. But Benton's a little crazy. I mean, burning a cross into your fucking forehead is nuts.
Yeah. I don't know. I want to say Glenn Danzig, but I think it would be a pretty fair fight to be. I would call it a truce, but if I have to make a decision, I'll go with Glenn. But maybe not. I mean, Glenn Benton is younger, so maybe he has a little more more dexterity left in him.
Slightly more psychotic, I think, too. Better wedding song. Better wedding song. Journey, Open Arms, or Fucked with a Knife?
Oh, fuck with a knife. Come on.
Yeah. Did your bride walk down the aisle, or did you do your dance to Fucked with a Knife?
Unfortunately not, but she did walk down the aisle to the intro to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh, nice. I was gonna say, I was gonna ask, without getting too personal, man, like what kind of a wedding John McENTEE has, but I mean, we can get to more of that later. But okay, how about out of these two? Guys notorious for their makeup? Another fight scenario: Gene Simmons, King Diamond. Gene would probably just pay him to walk away, but I mean,
yeah, probably. That's a tough one. Both are like super important in my history. But I'm gonna go with King Diamond because I just seen them play Merciful Fate, and it was so fucking good. I think everybody got it.
I wish it would have came closer to here because I was, not only to see the great Merciful Fate, but also because they were touring with Creator, a thrash band that I love and have always wanted to see, high on my bucket list, and I've never gotten a chance. So I don't know if they were tour support when you saw them.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. The last one, the more offensive child-oriented name: Dying Fetus, Decrepit Birth. Both fucking disgusting, but I mean.
Yeah, I like Dying Fetus because that just pisses people off.
It does, right? It does. And for bonus points, and now you got to take into account here that you are looking at the son of glam right here. You are looking at Diamond David Lee Roth Jr., but this is for bonus points. The better Van Halen era, Roth or Hagar?
Oh, come on. Of course it's Roth, but I mean, come on.
You know what, John? I didn't even want to have to ask because I knew where you would go with it. I mean, you know what? I take it all back. It's an insult to have asked a fucking true metalhead like you, man. I knew what you were going to say. See that? We should have never doubted him. We should have never doubted him.
But I'm sorry, but I mean, Sammy Hagar, I like Sammy Hagar. He sounds like a fun guy,
Yeah, I do. Yeah, he does seem like a pretty cool guy. I mean, he's got his own tequila brand. I mean, he doesn't take himself too seriously. Living down in Cabo Wabo, he seems like he's having a ball. I mean, hopefully I can get that DNA testing to go through, and I can finally prove once and for all that I'm Diamond Dave's son. Hey, sky's the limit. I'm going to take this podcast. Sky's the limit, John. Sky's the limit. Is it any kind of a coincidence that here around the Christmas season that if you rearrange a couple letters in Santa that you have Satan? Do you read anything into that?
Well, that's because Santa is Satan.
You think so? Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, because people are worried more about Santa than they are Christ on Christmas.
I know. And plus, you got this guy with a big beard. He's got kids sitting on his lap all the time. The whole thing just seems a little
just
slimy.
like at the church.
Yeah. So, okay. I want to get you in this part too. I do a little thing called table for two. You're able to sit down and have dinner with one person, dead or alive. Who is it? Doesn't even got to just be a musician. Could be anybody.
Oh, fuck. I don't know. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
I had to actually slim this segment down, John, believe it or not, because for a while I had a table for 4 and nobody could sit and tell me fucking 3 other people that they would want to sit down with. So I'm like, I told my son when I was creating these segments, I'm like, I think I got to slim down the table one because a lot of people on the spur of the moment can't think of 3 people they want to sit down and have a dinner or a conversation with.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Fuck if I could think of who. That's almost too like the question is
loaded. Yeah.
You know,
you probably got a lot.
Yeah, I mean,
there's certainly no shortage of great dead musicians. So I mean,
yeah, I know. I don't know. I mean, just for the hell of it, I'll say Randy Rhoads.
Oh man, that's a great. Yeah, I was fortunate enough to have on here a couple months back Kelly Garney, who was the original bass player and Randy's childhood friend, and the two of them really started Quiet Riot together. And I had to ask him, I'm just like, when is the moment when you're jamming with this guy and you look over and realize, Jesus Christ, he's a fucking genius, you know?
Yeah.
But he said he really couldn't look at him that way though, because he was just Randy. I guess when you're coming up and he's your childhood friend, you don't really, the magnitude of what he's able to do really doesn't probably hit you until like years afterwards. And I kind of get that. That would kind of be his answer. It made sense to me afterwards. I think I was expecting some kind of profound answer like, oh, we were 14 and he just blew me away with this, but it really wasn't like that though.
Sure.
So I want to ask. I've been picking people's brain here at the very end of the interviews, trying to put together a little compilation of people's the best advice you've ever been given over the course of your life. That either you've heard or that you maybe came up with yourself, a philosophy, a mantra, just advice over the years. Good piece of advice.
A good piece of advice.
Don't get into music.
Yeah, probably don't get into music for sure,
Oh, no. Don't listen to that, kids. Get into music, play your instruments, practice hard. You could be, you could be the next John McENTEE or, I don't want to stop kids from playing music. That's terrible advice, kids.
Let's see. I would say most important thing I think as far as a musician goes is just to learn about the music business as much as possible, because it's really easy to it's not easy, but easy to play music and maybe write music and play good in the band, but when it comes to business stuff, a lot of times you're dealing with people that their main goal is just to make money off what you're doing, and you want to make sure that it's a fair deal. So yeah, be a little more serious. I would say that would be a piece of advice, is to try to learn about as much music, because I know when we first signed to our record deal, we didn't know what the fuck we were doing. A record, but you don't know what what rights are for publishing or whatever, and also just if anything else, try to appreciate all the good moments that you have in life in general. Don't take things for granted, and just realize that you can't let other people being a downer interfere with yourself or your own destiny. You got to follow your own heart, do what you want to do, and not let other people hold you back, but also appreciate the ones that will stick by your side and work with you.
Well said. So in 2020, we got the Sect of Filed Divinities. When's the next album dropping?
Well, we don't have a date for it. I was actually just before this interview was reviewing the order of the album because we got to try to figure out what the order of this album will be.
Yeah.
So things are so freaking delayed with vinyl these days that it's not going to be probably until fall of next year our new album will be out, just because it'll take so damn long to get the vinyl for the release date. But recently we just released the Tricentennial Blasphemy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was something we were working on for a while. We were happy to put out. And we just did that EP, the Blood Incantation split EP we put out, which is, really happy about. Just but yeah, it'll probably be, unfortunately, another almost a year until it's out, even though the freaking thing is done. And it'll be done in January, and we have to probably wait until earliest like September for Lucky to get it out.
What's the right answer right now for the format to release music on? Are you still gonna proceed with with LPs? I know that's a varying opinion among musicians nowadays. Some people go in the singles route, some people go in the EP route. Are you old school in the sense that you like to put out a fully realized LP?
Yeah, for me, vinyl is just right, because when you write songs, they're usually a story that the whole thing tells, the whole album tells. We still do it like that, so not like individual songs. Like this Tricentennial of Blasphemy release was a compilation album, so it didn't have that. It doesn't have that story necessarily throughout it. It has a different story of like our history, but when we do we like to do an album, full album, so you could have a beginning, middle, and end that kind of makes sense and takes you somewhere. So yeah, we're going to continue doing it. I mean, yeah, we'll do individual songs here and there for certain things, like for the split we just did or whatever. But our main emphasis is on full albums. It's just the way I look at it, because I just sometimes a song on its own just doesn't represent what the whole picture is of something.
I totally agree with that. And it's unfortunate because it seems like people don't, with the attention span of the general public nowadays, it just seems like people don't, like we talked about earlier, sit down and just, enjoy the whole immersive experience of an album from start to finish anymore, which is sad and unfortunate. It really is, that people just kind of, pick and choose. Oh, I like track 2 and 7, and that's it. I mean, it's, I wish people still did. I still enjoy listening to an album and putting it on and experiencing it. And, speaking to your point about putting the songs in order, I mean, where it kind of did, have a certain, ebb and flow to it that, that made sense.
Yes. Yeah. It's all important to me. Cause it's a piece of work.
Right.
I mean, there was a time in music early, like in the 40s and 50s, where it was all singles or whatever. But it's like, I grew up in the time of records where I would, listen to a record front to back, like you said. And it just means something to me to listen to the full record and not just like, not just be like one of those like song cherry pickers, A lot of people, they just, they want to just listen to the Paranoid and Iron Man and War Pigs. And it's like, I look at music, I want to hear the rare songs. I want to hear the jams. I want to hear just
the deep tracks.
The cool stuff. Beat tracks. I want to hear, and to me, a lot of that stuff is usually better than the popular ones. And when we're doing an album, we want people to understand, like, there's a whole landscape to the whole thing. It's not just, we're not just writing songs. I mean, even when we did our first album, they were pretty much, it was Onward to Golgotha was a collage of songs that we had up to that point, but we still tried to organize it the best way we could into some sort of journey. But now we write an album, we know we're writing an album, so we want to write it as an album,
Right.
It'd be weird.
It makes sense.
Yeah. Even when we have to release, like, usually they have 3 songs they want you to release before the album's out these days. Even then it's weird, because the first song, it dictates what people's perception of the album is, and it isn't really correct, because it's just one song that might mean more, or it could be a song that's like different than the rest of the album, but it's just the one song that they Relapse decided to release first. So it's weird for me. It was like that even on a Sect of All Divinities album. I was listening to the songs, and you really don't get the whole thing, at least what I'm trying to express, what we're trying to express as a band, unless you listen to the whole album.
Right. Well said. You know what? It's really been a pleasure talking to you, man. I could sit here and just shoot the shit with you all night. Hopefully, we could stay in touch and we can do this again sometime. It was a real honor to talk to you, man. And I had a blast conversing with you. And I probably, out of the 5 questions, I think I'd give you a 5 out of 5. I can't find any to disagree with. Maybe I was, you swayed me. I kind of liked Beelzebub, man, but you pulled me over to the Lucifer side. You really did.
That's good. Well,
I think that's the better Satan name.
I grew up with Bill from the Grimoire of Exalted Deeds.
Yeah.
And I'm so used to calling him Beelzebub that it's just like, it's just awkward to use that name for Satan, because I use it for like my friend.
Well, it really has been an hour, man. I really appreciate you coming on here and being so generous with your time, man. It was really fun talking, and please keep in touch, and hopefully we can get up and do this again sometime.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much. I appreciate you reaching out to me.
And people can find you all over wherever they can find anybody, right? Twitter, Instagram, fucking wherever the fuck, Spotify, Apple Music. You're out there. Incantation's out there.
Yeah. If you can't find us, then you're not looking.
You got fucking problems. Yeah, you need to. You need to. You obviously need to be pulled into the 21st century and learn how to use your technology better. Put in Incantation somewhere in your search engine, and that face will pop up.
Yeah, and even if you don't use technology, just go to your fucking record store.
Yeah, I go dig around in the fucking crates, if crates even still exist. I don't know. I mean, I know the record store here, it tends to be, you get a lot of these big chain stores, and they only carry like the most recent record, whereas you can't find anybody's back catalog unless you're a megastar. Like, I could go down to the FYE down here, and I could find every Metallica album, but if I was looking for you guys, let's say, I would find the very last one. But if I wanted to find something that you did 5-10 years ago, forget it. And the heavy metal section is shrunk down, where it started like, very long, and now it's kind of like, what happens to these stores is they turn into like almost toy novelty stores. You can go in there and find the dolls and the Funko dolls and all this kind of shit, but you can't find an album.
I know.
That's what happens. They all turn into these toy novelty stores. I can go in and get all the Japanese anime shit that I want, but I can't find, an Incantation album from 10 years ago. God forbid. I know they can't stock every piece of, art that everybody puts out, but I mean, it's gotten to become, the heavy metal section. So someone ought to have a funeral for it down at FYE, because the heavy metal section is dead down there. It's dead. But I really appreciate it, man. It's been really great talking to you, man. You are a very nice guy, man, for spending this much time, fucking rollicking around with a fool like me who thinks he's David Lee Roth's son, man. You got more power to you, man.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I was gonna say, I think you have the David Lee Roth syndrome.
I do. I can't stop talking, and I talk like somebody that just snorted a couple industrial-sized lines of cocaine, which seems to be what David Lee Roth always sounds like too. I mean, he's always ramped up to 10. That guy, which I do like. You need people. You need characters like that in life. But yeah, it is. It's been an honor, Mr. McENTee. Thank you so much. And we will be looking forward with bated breath for that new album. We have to have something to be able to sacrifice our animals to. So please hurry up and get that in our hands. I don't sacrifice my animals. I don't want to say that. All of a sudden I'll get PETA people, and YouTube will be taking me down or flagging me or something.
People will take you literally.
They sure will. Well, thank you so much, sir. Enjoy the rest of your day. It has really been an honor. You are a legend, sir. I will give you your flowers right here and now. Put some respect on this fucking man's name, goddammit. He's been in this racket for 33 years.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, John. I really appreciate it, man. Enjoy the rest of your day, sir.
Take care. See you.
All right. Talk to you soon, brother. Thank you. Later. There he goes, folks. That's the great John McENTee from a little death metal band called Incantation that's only been around for 30 plus fucking years. Do your fucking homework. Go out and support that guy. Incantation. You can find them everywhere. You want blasphemous, dark, heavy fucking shit? There's your band. You're welcome. Hope you guys enjoyed that episode of Pod Scum. And by the way, I was just shooing my cat out at the beginning of that episode. That's a little technique I use where I give him the just a little startle him and get him out someplace. And at the beginning of the show, obviously Keith was, my doorman opening the door. I didn't want any cats in here to disturb my conversation with Mr. McENTEE. So again, animal rights people, don't get your panties in a wad. I'm not sacrificing animals, nor am I being mean to my cats. It's just simply a noise. Hiss them out of here. And they kind of get a little spooked and out they go. That's not mean, folks. Lighten up. Hope you guys enjoyed that episode of Pod Scum. Keith, you like that? A real bona fide legend. Again. Audience, you're welcome. Give me some views. Give me some subscriptions. Join the party. And as always, remember to take it easy and keep it sleazy.